The cold wind pushed through the busy city streets, but inside the warm bakery on the corner of Maple Avenue, everything felt peaceful. Soft music, the smell of fresh bread, trays of pastries glistening under golden light. Yet, that peace shattered the moment the bakery door creaked open, and a worn-out woman stepped inside, with a little girl hiding behind her torn coat. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks sunken, and her hands trembled as she held them close to her chest. She didn't look like someone who came to buy anything. She looked like someone who came because she had nowhere else to go, and when her quiet, cracking voice rose above the soft hum of the bakery, the entire room froze as she asked the question that would change everything. She asked if they had any expired cake they could give her daughter, something old, something discarded, anything at all. If you believe kindness still exists in this world, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring more real, emotional, and meaningful stories to you. The woman's voice was hardly more than a whisper, but the weight of her words hit like thunder. Around her, customers slowly turned their heads. At the counter, the young couple who owned the bakery exchanged a worried glance, and at the far end, leaning against the glass, wearing a suit that looked older than time itself but still pressed perfectly, stood an elderly man with sharp eyes and a tired expression, someone who blended into crowds but carried an air that said he wasn't ordinary. He hadn't spoken a word yet, but his gaze tightened as he listened. The woman kept her hands wrapped around the little girl, as if shielding her from the world. The child looked too thin for her age, her eyes big and frightened, her tiny fingers clutching her mother's coat. Every detail about them told a story of nights slept outside, of hunger gnawing at the bones, of dignity stripped away one small piece at a time. Yet the mother still tried to stand. Tall, trying to hide her shame even as it crushed her. She explained that she didn't want charity, didn't want pity. She only wanted something expired, something the bakery would throw away, to give her daughter the feeling of having cake for her birthday. A birthday they couldn't celebrate, a birthday they couldn't afford. The bakery owners hesitated, not because they didn't want to help, but because the suddenness of the request caught them completely off guard. They had seen homeless people before, but this woman didn't look like someone who had been homeless all her life. Her clothes were torn, but beneath the dirt there were hints that once they had been new, clean, well-kept. Her hands weren't rough like someone used to hard labor. Her face, though tired and lined with hardship, still carried the faint shadow of someone who used to smile often. She looked like someone who had fallen far and hard. The elderly man in the suit, still silent, continued watching, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully as the bakery staff gently tried to offer alternatives. They said they would gladly give her fresh bread for free, warm pastries, even something sweet that wasn't expired. But the woman shook her head desperately. She wasn't begging, she insisted. She just wanted to feel like she was giving her daughter something normal, something she could say she paid for, even if it was only expired cake. Something that didn't feel like charity, and that was when her voice broke. She said her daughter hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days, that she had walked from shelter to shelter trying to find a place that wasn't full, that she had lost her job, then lost her home, then lost every person who once promised to help. But she hadn't lost her hope for her child, and she wouldn't let the little girl see her cry. But as she spoke those words, a single tear slid down her cheek, betraying her strength. The elderly man's jaw tightened. Something inside him stirred, something he had buried. Long ago. Memories, shadows, regrets. There was something familiar about a mother's quiet desperation, something he had once seen in the mirror years ago when life had broken him too. The bakery couple moved quickly, getting a small box and filling it with fresh pastries, pretending they were expired just to save the woman from discomfort. But before they could pack everything, the woman panicked, thinking she was causing trouble. She tried to stop them, insisting she didn't want to take advantage of their kindness. Her hands trembled as she tried to place the box back, her eyes terrified that someone might yell at her, call her a thief, or chase her out. The little girl tugged her sleeve, her small voice trembling as she whispered something only her mother could hear. The woman bent down, stroked the girl's cheek, and assured her softly that they would be okay, even if she didn't truly believe it. The elderly man exhaled slowly, pushing away from the counter. He watched the scene as if watching a moment he had lived before, a moment he regretted never helping with in the past. His own life had been filled with wealth, power, and success, but none of it had erased the memory of the night he had once been hungry, once been helpless, once been desperate. A night when no one helped him, when people walked past him as if he were invisible. He carried that memory with him for decades, buried beneath millions of dollars and business achievements. But now, standing in that bakery, hearing the mother's trembling words, it all came back to him. The bakery owners gently asked the woman to wait for a moment so they could prepare a small package for her. She nodded, though her body looked like it might collapse at any second. The little girl leaned against the glass counter, staring at the rows of pastries with wide, hungry eyes. It was heartbreaking how something so small, a cookie, a pastry, a slice of cake, could mean the world to someone who had nothing. The elderly man turned away for a moment, running his hands over his face. He wasn't someone who acted impulsively, but suddenly the urge to do something, anything, became overwhelming. He looked at the bakery owners, then at the woman, then at the child, and something inside him snapped, not in anger, but in resolve. He stepped closer, observing the mother quietly, studying her posture, her distress, her pride that still tried to hold itself together. He knew better than anyone how hard it was to ask for help when the world had already taken too much from you. He noticed the holes in her sleeves, the bruises on her arms from sleeping on cold streets, the way she positioned herself protectively in front of her daughter. And he noticed the child, frail but still innocent, still hopeful. The bakery owners returned with the box, expressing gentle reassurance. The mother accepted it with shaking hands, her gratitude pouring out in broken words. She clutched the box as if it were treasure, promising she would repay them someday, somehow. She turned to leave, holding her daughter's hand tightly. But the elderly man finally spoke, his voice low, steady, and firm. He asked the bakery owners how much the woman owed. They quickly explained she owed nothing, that it was a gift. But the man shook his head slightly, insisting on paying anyway. Not because he didn't appreciate their kindness, but because he wanted to take responsibility for what happened next. The woman froze, surprised and confused, turning toward him slowly. She hadn't even noticed him earlier. For a moment she was scared, unsure if she had done something wrong. The man met her eyes, and in that instant something unspoken passed between them. Something human, something painful, something healing. He stepped forward, not to offer pity, not to embarrass her, but to offer dignity. He asked the bakery owners to prepare the largest cake they had, a real birthday cake, something beautiful, something a little girl would remember forever. He paid for it in full, then handed it to the woman gently. She tried to refuse, shaking her head, tears welling up, but he told her quietly, without boasting, without showing off, that no child should spend her birthday without feeling special. That once, someone helped him in a moment when he thought he had no future, and that now, it was his turn. The woman broke down trembling, holding the cake with both hands as if she were afraid it would vanish. The daughter stepped closer to the man, her eyes shining with something beyond gratitude, hope, maybe. The mother whispered a thank you through tears that finally flowed freely. The elderly man wasn't finished. He asked the bakery owners to prepare warm meals for both mother and daughter. He paid for new clothes from the clothing shop next door. And finally, he asked the mother if she had a place to stay that night. The woman, embarrassed, admitted she did not, so he arranged a room for them at a small but clean hotel nearby, paying for several nights up front. The bakery owners watched in awe, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. Not charity, not pity, but humanity at its purest. The mother cried so quietly that only the child beside her knew. She held her daughter close, whispering blessings for the man who had saved them in a moment when they had nothing left. And as they left the bakery, warmth and hope filled the space that had once been silent and tense. But the story didn't end there. Over the next few days, the elderly man visited the hotel where the mother and daughter stayed, not to intrude, but to make sure they were settling in and had food, clothes, and basic needs met. He learned the mother's story, how she had worked for years, how she had lost her job when her company shut down, how she had spent months trying to keep her daughter safe as everything collapsed around them. He learned that she never begged until she had no choice. He saw strength hidden beneath exhaustion, hope beneath despair. He offered her a job, a stable job, not as a favor, but because he saw potential in her. Resilience, intelligence, dedication. She accepted with trembling hands, unable to believe her life could change so quickly. Weeks passed. The woman regained her health, her confidence, her stability. The little girl enrolled in school again. They moved into a small apartment, humble but warm and full of life. And the elderly man, who once lived a life of silence and distance, found himself visiting them often, bringing small gifts, checking on their well-being. Slowly, he became part of their lives, and on the little girl's next birthday, she didn't ask for an expired cake. She asked to invite the elderly man, the one who had turned her darkest day into a miracle. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful, emotional stories for you. Before you go, comment below, kindness can change a life. Thank you for watching.